welcome. We are live. Welcome everybody that's joining us on YouTube or Facebook. Today we have Mark Wandrey, the creator of the 4HU Universe, and Jon Osborne, author and game master. And these guys are lifelong friends, and we're gonna have a chat with them today. I see our usual rival is coming into the comments. Welcome everyone. Happy to see you. First off, let's get it out of the way. Let's plug everything we're gonna plug for you guys. Where can people find you online? Mark, go ahead. You first.
Having a unique name more than John, it's pretty easy to find me. Usually put me in a Google search engine and I pop out, but I'm on Facebook as Mark Wandrey author, also for the Four Horsemen Universe fan club and for the general Four Horsemen Universe Mercenary Guild. I have a Twitter account, but I almost never use it, Instagram and Patreon, and the links are all too big to memorize.
Well, here we go. We're going to put them across. Nope, that's not yours. That's Chris's.
Hey, quit plugging Chris's.
Sorry, wrong one. All right, hold on. I'll get it together here. There's your Patreon.
Hey, there I am.
There you are.
Yeah, I've been doing Oz for like 37 years or something like that, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to get into that, Oz. Let's go ahead and plug your stuff. We've got your website.
Yep, my website, JonROsborne.com. On Facebook, Jon R. Osborne. On Instagram, Jon R. Osborne. Kind of a theme here. And then my Twitter, which was before I became an author, is Druid Oz, which if you've read any of my urban fantasy, you see how that ties in.
All right.
I'm not cool enough for Patreon yet.
We'll get you there. And then speaking of, this show is brought to you by Chris Kennedy Publishing. So go to chriskennedypublishing.com for everything Chris Kennedy, including the Four Horsemen. Chris Kennedy, support this show and Chris Kennedy Publishing by going to Chris Kennedy Patreon. You can also find news and everything Chris Kennedy on. Also, you can find them on Amazon. And then there is, if you search Chris Kennedy or the Factory 4 on Facebook, you can find them there too. All right. So all the bills are out of the way. Y'all started with that. Y'all have been known each other for like 30 years. How'd y'all meet?
Closer to 40. We're both gamers.
Yeah, we met at a game club in Indianapolis, actually.
Yeah, right after I relocated there at about 23 years old, of course, I went looking for fellow gamers and found Oz and all of his group and everybody he had known for a while already. And we kind of just did that and spent 20 or so years wasting our lives, something like that.
Hey, it's not a waste of our lives. Look at, that inspired a lot of our writing. So
this is true.
All right. So let's see. Mark, let's get into it. You're the creator of the 4H Universe, Four Horsemen Universe. Tell me how that came about. How did that come to you? How'd you create it?
It actually came to me right after reading Ready Player One. I kind of had some ideas about, what if there was these ancient alien weapons and stuff, and nobody knew how to use them except nerds. And I kind of had an idea for a story, and I dabbled it around for a while. Then Mercenaries came to mind, and well, like most good stories, when you start with it, it doesn't end up looking anything like it when you're done. So I started writing the first book, which was called Cartwright's Cavaliers, and I was about halfway done with it when I ran into Chris Kennedy. Actually, I should go back a little further. Just before I even started, I met Chris, and I asked him if he wanted to co-write it, and he was too busy. Well, like every writer early in their career, they're always looking for somebody to mentor them or to help them. And I just figured it was just another case of somebody just didn't want to write with me. So I went ahead and started writing it and met him again at another convention 6 months later. And he says, "Hey, I've got time now. What do you got?" I'm like, "Oh, well, the book's already half done." And he goes, "Well, let me see it." So I gave it to him and he read it. Apparently he didn't get to sleep till 4 o'clock in the morning. He was so engaged by it. And the next morning when he saw me again, of course, I'm all eager. I'm like, "Did you read it? Did you read it?" He goes, yeah, I don't know how to tell you this. And I'm like, oh God. He goes, I loved it. I want to write some too. And we sat down in the bar at the hotel, which Oz was there also, actually.
Yeah,
And like
Chris told me what he was going to do to Mark.
Oh no!
And like Chris liked to say, every good story begins in a bar. And sure enough, so we sat there and we hashed out the beginnings of the Four Horsemen universe right there. And we decided to split up the Four Horsemen. He promptly renamed his two, and the rest was history.
Awesome. Now, you also write other genres like post-apocalyptic horror, things like that. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, I have a completed trilogy of books, Zombie Apocalypse, but it's not really zombie. Oz nicknamed them Nombies because they're still alive. I wanted to write zombie, but I was too bothered by the idea that you can't make dead things walk around indefinitely. So I came up with the idea of an alien plague and went with that. I may write more of those someday. It's actually gotten a lot more to that universe, but the third book didn't sell as well. So if you want to see it, go out and buy a few hundred copies. I might change my mind. And also I have a long-standing space opera series called Earth Song, which has got 7 books in it now, and I've got a few more in it. I just haven't had time to write any of those yet. It's kind of my older works, and it's just kind of hanging out there. I don't want to, pull a germ and leave it hanging, so I will finish the series one way or another. And I'm working on some new stuff too, so I'm trying to do an urban fantasy.
If I'm not mistaken, your Earth Song series is doing pretty good in Germany.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Awesome. Wait, so do you know how many, speaking of that, do you know how many of your books have made it to translation?
I think with your song books, I think 6 of them so far.
Oh, cool.
Chris has put together a list basically of like the first cycle of books from the Horseman universe, and he kind of weeded out some of the other books and kind of cut it down to a more narrower scope so you get the story better. A lot of the secondary stories didn't make the cut. He did the same with the anthologies. He combined them into, I think, 2 anthology volumes to keep them to mainline stories more. The whole goal is to keep selling as well as it is. Eventually, most of the Four Horsemen books will end up there. And the Germans have a good taste for it. So Oz's Elysian Accord stuff is starting, right?
Yeah, all 4 books are out over there.
Nice.
Well, nice segue. So, John, if you would, tell us about your books.
So, in addition to writing the Four Horsemen universe, I have my urban fantasy series, The Elysian Accords, which is basically rooted in the Irish invasion myth from a book called Le Borgabala Erin, which goes through the 7 waves of people that come into Ireland, each invading, driving out or pushing back the others, and it ends with the Milesians basically driving the Tuatha Dé Danann into the underworld. And so I was actually driving back and forth to my parents' house. My mother had passed a few months earlier. My stepfather passed. So I had a lot of time on the road driving back and forth every weekend to take care of the estate. And I was thinking about this. I was like, well, what if that was actually rooted in an actual, kernel of truth, and there was a way to bring magic back? How would that work? And then just the first scene of Orlando Druid came to me. And basically the first scenes that I got put down in my brain were the opening scene and the final fight. So I knew where I wanted to start and I knew where I wanted to end.
Yeah. So go ahead.
And actually at the same breakfast where Chris told me what he was going to do to Mark, I had pitched a Reluctant Druid to him. And he's like, well, yeah, that's something I'd like to read. But, at that point, I didn't have a finished manuscript. I'd never been published. Well, then I got a chance to submit for the first anthology, A Fistful of Credits. And Mark kind of gave me the kick in the butt, and he's like, look, you can do a short story. Because my problem with projects was I'd always get distracted. I'd get our way into it, and then something else would come along. And he's like, look, it's 8,000 words. You can finish it. And Chris said that he would take a look at it. There's no guarantees it would get published, but he would at least look at it. And I thought, well, okay, if nothing else, this is a good chance for me to get feedback from a publisher. And I submitted it, and Chris liked it. And then at LibertyCon, we went to lunch.
Yeah, because Chris and I both liked it. That's part of how those work. We both have to approve stories.
But this was where Fistful of Crest was getting launched, and we went to lunch, and he said, "Look, if your book's as good as the story you gave me, I'll publish it."
That's awesome.
And at that point, I had finished the first draft of Orlando Druid. And,
So
the rest is history.
So how many years ago is this? Are we talking?
5?
Oh, okay. So not that long
5.
ago.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I like to tell people that, it's never too late to get going. Writing is something that, both Mark and I wanted to do ever since we were young.
Mhm.
And, I got published at 51. Mark got published, I think, a little bit earlier than that.
A couple of years. The Four Horsemen Universe was born December 21st, 2016. That's when Cartwright's was published. But my first book was self-published about 8 years or 10 years before that, with the first of those Riff Song books. By the time I'd written the 5th one, it came out to tumultuous applause of about 200 sales. So I think that's my first one where I broke Happy Meal, royalty levels. So it was actually, my Zombies was my first actual bestsellers. The first zombie book actually just exploded. I was kind of surprised by that and annoyed. I didn't really want to write zombies, but sometimes you need to, this one way you can get in front of people, to do something you haven't done before.
Yeah. Well, just so people can see it, this is, I believe, this is your latest release, Mark?
Yes, that is the last book in the
Guild Wars.
Guild Wars series. Thank you, Oz. Which is the third
storyline.
Third Four Horsemen storyline. We do them in overarching storylines, like that follows the mainline stories, and there's also books within each series that are peripheral books happening at the same time, but may not be directly related to the main plot line. This way, we give readers a lot of options for what they want to read. There's a bunch of different story arcs. There's Oz's Berserker story arcs. There's the Peacemaker story arcs. There's the Rogel story arcs. There's the Kill Kitties, the Depic story arcs. And some people just read absolutely everything. We have mega readers who realize there's 70 plus books in the series. They buy them all and read them in a few weeks. I don't know how they manage it, but God bless them all, every one.
And then, John, this is the first book in your series. Is that right?
That's right.
I love that cover, Oz.
Yeah, the artwork is pretty slick. All the artwork that comes out of CKP is pretty good. In fact, I would love to get some of the artists on this show just to talk about how they do what they do.
The main horseman artist would be difficult. I don't think he actually speaks English.
Oh, okay. Well,
we nicknamed him Thai Guy. He's from Thailand. Chris usually communicates with him via cartoons. He'll draw stuff out and they'll kind of talk back and forth to each other. He's a great guy. He's kind of what's kept us going, has given us a distinctive style. Yeah. That one, though, Oz, that's the guy who did the cover for the Rules of Engagement, right?
No, this is different. This was Alejandro Rito. Actually, the way we got the Malaysian Accord covers was Podium was doing the audiobooks. They made new covers for it. And they're like, oh, hey, we've done these new covers. If you guys want to use them, you can. And Chris showed me the covers. I'm like, yes, please.
After you wipe the drool off your chin.
Now, Oz, you said you've written in the 4HU as well. What have you done there?
Well, in addition to several short stories, I write John's Berserkers book. So When the Axe Falls in the Guild Wars, on the Omega Wars, and Axe Grind in the Guild Wars, and Bjorn in the Frontier Young Adult.
And that was the character that was introduced in the very first short story he ever wrote, Surf and Turf, in the original anthology.
Yeah, because I'm like, well, the Four Horsemen universe is so cool. You got mechas fighting. It's like, how do I do something even cooler? Space Vikings.
And actually, in that anthology, we had 3 people submit stories with basically Space Vikings in it, and Oz's was the best. So he ended up getting to do Valhalla Awaits, his dream come true.
That's awesome. So,
he also introduced one of the cooler aliens, those Iktal, which are basically big crabs.
So we're talking about creating these worlds. One of the topics that y'all wanted to talk about was world building. How do you build a good world? What are your methods? Things like that.
That's where the non-wasted years Oz was talking about comes from. If anybody doesn't know Jon Osborne, he always goes by Oz. That's pretty much all I've known him by for more than 30 years.
Yeah, even my ex-wife called me Oz, although that may be because her first husband's name was also John. So
you were the great and mighty Oz, weren't you, at one point? But when you run role-playing games with both Oz and I both did. I preferred to run, and so did he. But we tend to trade back and forth in our campaigns. But that is what really helped us develop our world-building abilities. Because nothing screws up a world better than players. So you have to get extremely adept and nimble. So you get in the habit of taking an idea, you want to do this for a campaign, and then they call it different things, but I call it wargaming. I then start taking it apart and attacking it from different angles and see what this will work, that would work. Oh God, if I did this, this doesn't work. Somebody else has done that, so I can't do that. And then once I get enough pieces nibbled out of it, I end up with a nexus of what I wanted. Four Horsemen Universe, it was, giant mecha combat mercenaries and lots of aliens. That was the core that I got down to. In my Earthsong world, it was the idea of these portals you can travel anywhere in the galaxy in, and humans, planets destroyed at the very beginning. So you get that nexus of a piece you can work with, and then you can start building back up around the bite marks, I like to say. Okay, I can put this and I can do that. And all the time try to keep enough surprises for later, because there's one thing readers, players like, is when you can throw a twist at them. But if you write it so compacted and so compartmentalized, there's nothing left to mess with. And in fact, we just had a learning thing, one of Chris's Learning Tuesdays, where he said, don't make your character a Mary or Marty Sue. And the only thing I had to say with that is, don't be afraid to let your main character fail, because they can never succeed if they can't fail.
Yeah,
and
that's part of character growth.
Yeah, and that's a big problem with a lot of modern movies, is the heroes are so perfect. When they succeed, you're like, well, yeah, I knew they were going to succeed. And if you don't let them face plant a few times, you're not going to be cheering for them at the end when they win that big boss fight. And the character I created, Jim Cartwright, was basically a kind of a fat gamer geek that ends up being a mercenary commander. And by the end of it, in the big fight at the end, I've got people cheering for him and loving the heck out of him, So that's the world building process I go through. Oz might have a slightly different process.
Well, being a game master, you have to learn how to world build on the fly. Mm-hmm. Like Mark said, you don't want to constrain yourself. You want to leave enough blank spaces, because whatever you draw on the map, your players are going to go off the edge of the map.
Yep. They're going to build the whole town out. We're going to adventure in this town today.
And they're going to go left. Well, they go right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to come up with, okay, if they're going here, how do I adapt to that? What do they see? I tend to work from a character-centric world-building standpoint. I don't like, I don't need to know how the economy of every kingdom in my D&D world works. I need to know where, what my players are going to see. And I can fill out as they go along. Because I may come up with a cool idea down the road that, that works better than what I previously planned.
Yep.
Or the players may come up with an idea, and then you use it, and then they think they're really smart.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, there's two types of writers. There's plotters, and then there's pantsers. Mm-hmm. And like David Weber's an incredible author. When he does a book, he has a 20,000 word outline, and he sticks to it. That's alien brain thinking. I don't understand at all. I have a few notes, and when I get to the end of it, I'll often look back and go, well, that's not at all what I was going to write. I literally do it like Oz talks about running a game on the fly. Writing a story right now where it's already diverged in 3 places from my original idea. That's that nimbleness to be able to flick around in the outside. When we created the Four Horsemen Universe and we had the first anthology come out and we realized this was working, we were getting really good sales, we wanted other authors to write in it, but how do you do that when there's nothing to find? So I had to stop everything and put 5,000 or 6,000 words into a Bible for the universe. So we were forced to codify a lot of things. And to this day, a lot of that stuff is still exactly how it was. And so we kind of had to make that framework, from the work in. That's a foreign thing for me to do, let me tell you. In fact, there's a few things that I still regret how I did them back then. But if there's anything science fiction fans tend to want, is at least stick to the rules, of your universe. One of our big rules, anti-grav. There was no anti-gravity in Four Horsemen Universe, and there never will be. it's that solid rule, despite the fact that at least one of our authors keeps trying to sneak stuff in on us.
Yeah, I like to say pantsing is how my first book became a trilogy.
All right. So I'm gonna go to the audience. So Yvonne has a question. When is the next Space Vikings book?
Actually, I've already started work on Bifrost Down. It'll be in the Phoenix Initiative storyline. And if you've read Ally, it picks up basically at the end of Ally.
Okay. Let's see. Mark, if you can hear us, you look like you froze up. Yvonne again. Here's the great and mighty Oz. Wait, there was a question I had that came from what y'all were talking about. So while we wait for Mark to come back, where do you get inspiration? I know a lot of your writing comes from your ability to play games and think on the fly and create from games, but what inspires you to write? Is there anything besides gaming that does that for you?
Mythology.
Okay.
Because the Milesian Accords is heavily rooted in Celtic mythology, mostly Irish, but I also pull some from Welsh and other Celtic related ones. And then I dabble in Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Having been a pagan of various stripes in my youth, I was exposed to a lot of it, and I had a keen interest in it.
Okay.
Ironically, it turns out that I have a fair amount of Scots and Irish blood. So.
Okay. So let's see. So we kind of talked about world building. Now, since we've got you on the screen, you're the game master. So tell us what's going on in the world of tabletop gaming or gaming in general. What's exciting to you?
Well, gaming in general has really exploded. And a lot of that has to do with YouTube, actually. Mm-hmm. Ever since gaming streaming became popular, basically Dungeons and Dragons has gone nuclear. Back in mine and Mark's day, we were the nerdy kids, throwing dice in mom's basement like you see on Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. Those kids on Stranger Things, that was us.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
But now all the cool kids want to play D&D.
Yeah. Did y'all spoilers if you haven't watched the latest episodes of Stranger Things. Earmuffs, what rock are you under? And did y'all have a team name like they did? Like the Hellfire Club?
No.
We
weren't that cool.
No. And obviously those kids stole that from Marvel Comics, so.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah. John, Mark, while you were...
Sorry about dropping out. My phone does not like this app for some reason. It just rebooted completely on me.
That's fine. But while you were on break, I was asking John, what other than gaming, what inspires you to write? What do you take from? What keeps you going as far as writing goes?
My wife says if I don't write, I'm a miserable SOB. So that's a big part of it. I've written since I was 10 years old. If I don't get the words out, my brain will explode. But things that motivate me is usually seeing something new and interesting. Mm-hmm. I'm like right now, a Farley series, the Lightning series just came out on audiobooks. I've been going through them. It's really good, unique technology creation, sci-fi kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I go back and go over, I love disaster scenarios, so I love going back over some books like The Last Babylon or Lucifer's Hammer.
You like breaking your toys.
What's that, Oz?
You like breaking your toys.
Yeah, pretty much. I've destroyed the earth a few times, I'll admit it. It's, and sometimes new stuff comes out that inspires me as well. The other authors in the Four Horsemen Universe are really good at that. Because I'm kind of the chief chronicler, I kind of help steer the way. I have the overarching story in my mind. In fact, we actually have the very ending of everything, the last book we would write. the whole set. Oz and I were going over some of the scenes at Fantasy last year, and Chris was like, "Shouldn't we write the other books first?" And we're like, "Oh, we got a really cool ending. We got to keep this in our minds, you know." So I see stuff from them, and it'll often change the way things are going. You know, Rob Hampson, speaker, has got some really good stuff with the Rogel that's really been handy to write into it. It's deep creation like that really keeps me going. Seeing what other people have done, the world building.
So, John, we were talking about tabletop gaming, and what's new, greatest, what's going on there.
Well, if you're talking about, we just talked about gaming in general,
right?
Now, as far as the Four Horsemen Universe goes, of course, we're working on rules of engagement. Yeah, I love that cover.
It's an awesome cover.
It is.
But so the whole idea behind rules of engagement is we had a lot of fans who wanted, we want like a book of aliens or a source book about the Caspers or something like that. We also had other fans who were like, we want to game in the Four Horsemen universe because it's such a cool universe. And Mark knows that one of my lifelong aspirations has been to be a game designer.
No, really?
Yeah, and fun fact: right after college, I actually interviewed with Gary Gygax for his new company after he left TSR. Now, I didn't get the job. I don't know who put me out for it, but whoever they were, they were unemployed in 6 months when that company went under. Maybe.
I mean, I'm kind of the same. I went to FASA and tried to pitch a couple modules then for BattleTech before that all went under too. The reality, of course, is I don't know if either one of us could have followed through well at that point in our lives. There's been a lot of water under the bridge since then, but who knows? As both of us were being gamers, the idea of actually putting out our own game was a no-brainer, really. Once we realized we can combine a source book and a game book together, that was the key.
And that's exactly what Rules of Engagement is going to be. It's going to be a source book for people who want to play in the universe, but also a source book for people who just want more information about the universe.
Awesome.
And it's been an interesting project. Originally we thought we'd have been done with it by now. But basically between the Kickstarter doing so well and Discovery when we went for looking for a printer, the book originally we thought it was about half done. Well, because it got bigger in the Kickstarter and because we found out we could get a bigger book for the same price, it went from being 50% done to being about 25% done. But what it let us do is it really let us expand the information, for example, on playable races. Before each playable race, had, a blurb, a few paragraphs and then their game statistics. Well, now they basically get a good section where you go through not only a little bit of microfiction for each race, but information on things like their naming conventions, their roles they fill within, their various guilds or whatever. Basically about 2 pages of stuff on it. And so we've really been able to flesh it out a lot. However, that's also taken more research. Like, for example, researching naming conventions on the alien races. They weren't, in a lot of cases, solidly spelled out in the Bible. And so you have instances where, some races you'd see like pretty consistent naming. For example, the Somatozoa are pretty consistent as to how all the authors named them. However, there's others that have varied wildly. And so I had to go through and research this and try to reconcile, is it even reconcilable? There's a few races where it's just not reconcilable. And so obviously, like humans, they were balkanized before they joined the Galactic Union. And so their naming never set into one convention. There were others where most of them follow the naming convention, but you have some outliers. Well, those outliers just happen to be nicknames.
Okay, so while we wait for Mark to come back, what is your current favorite book that you like and that you would actually recommend to people?
You mean in the Four Horsemen universe?
it can be in the Four Horsemen universe, but just in general, anything that you're reading that you're really into.
Oh wow. I don't get a lot of time for reading outside of the Four Horsemen universe.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Eric Flynn's 1632 series. I'm a little bit behind on that. Casey's the Psyche series, Minds of Men,
Mm-hmm.
Skies of Conquer, and the middle book, which forgive me, Casey, but I'm spacing right now. But remember, but those were all really good because I'm a sucker for alt history. I'm really looking forward to Kevin Eikenberry's alt history book that's coming out from Baen.
Those are fun. I do like alt history. Those are fun. I love What If.
Yes.
So Mark, same question. Is there anything that you're reading right now or have read recently that you're really excited about and would recommend to people?
I'm kind of an old history sucker too. Turtle Dove is probably the master at it, in my opinion. I just went back over his In the Balance series, which has aliens invading in 1942, but their technology is about what ours was around 2000 or so. It's a fascinating storyline he has that spans like 11 books. Now the one he did, Guns of the South, it's like these South Africans bringing up like a 10,000 AK-47s to General Lee's Army of the Northern Virginia. He gives them to him to turn the tide of the war. It's something I've wanted to write my entire life, but sadly I am insufficiently schooled in history, so it may be something I never do. Maybe I'll team with somebody at some point and write something. As storytelling is my main ability, so I would just need the history backing of somebody with much more gravitas than I have to do something like that.
Yeah,
Sorry for my weird angle. My phone is lying on a pile of ice. I found out what was happening. It kept overheating, so it looks like I'm lying in bed staring at the ceiling. It's actually the opposite, but
We'll take it.
This will work.
We'll take it. Actually, you're coming in pretty clear.
Good.
We talked about books, and Mark, I appreciate you saying that you listen to audiobooks. I'm an audiobook reader. I like to be doing other things while I read.
Too. Yep.
And some people are like, shame. So
No. Audiobooks can be one of the most incredible moments of my life was hearing my first story in an audiobook.
That's awesome.
Hearing it done. And it was actually reaffirming in a ways because a few years down the road, the first YA in the Horseman Universe, Black and White, came out in Audible. And I was listening to it with my wife in the car and kind of forgot it was my book. And I was like, wow, this is really good. And I realized what I just said. And strangely enough, I've heard from several of my fans that Black and White's one of the best books I've ever written. So, which is part of the reason I'm working on the sequel to that one. It's actually a 3-book arc anyway that needs to be done before the Four Horsemen universe reaches its end. Otherwise, people will not understand some things.
Yeah, audiobooks are great for especially those long drives to conventions and stuff.
Absolutely. And I'm currently driving a truck to make some extra money because things are slow right now. So I went through the entire Wheel of Time series. That should tell you how much time I've got to listen to books. Because Brandon Sanderson has at least as bad a diarrhea of the mouth as Jordan ever had.
Plus for me, with an audiobook, because you actually, and they're not all created equal, but you have a performer. Mm-hmm. You've got somebody there that is acting and doing a character for you and bringing it to life. And I'm way more about, because my imagination isn't that good. And that's why I enjoy audiobooks. I said in the last podcast that I enjoy, if I know there is a movie coming out in the book that I haven't read yet, I will watch the movie first. So it's not ruined for me. And then read the book as the DVD extras, to get all of the story, and that's how
I think the challenge is really important. When Chris came to me and said we were going to be signing with Podium and we had a choice of narrators, he gave me a list, and first thing I said was, one wasn't on the list, and I said, can we get Todd McLaren? Because I really liked his style. He's got a great way of doing it, and sure enough, Podium went out and hired him for us, which was really awesome. And he's been our main line person for books now for 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, Tristan Morris does my Milesian Accords books.
Another really good
Yeah,
narrator.
I'm waiting to hear about the fourth one coming out in audio because I'm looking forward to that. Plus, I'll have a new one to listen to when I drive, like the Dragon Con or something.
If I ever get Earthsong series, I would like a female narrator because that's female centric in that series. The main characters are all women.
Mindy and
Mindy and Minu. Yeah.
So, Mark, a little while ago, here's Yvonne saying she'd wreck her car if she was listening to a book.
It's not for everybody. Some people cannot get into audiobooks. And I've been listening for so long now, I have a hard time reading a paper book. It's kind of embarrassing, but, aside from my own stuff, I can't get, I find myself actually clicking I'm reading a paper book, I click the read to feature, so you can listen to it, read it to you.
Yeah. So a little while ago, you said something about listening to your own books. Oh, that's pretty good. Have you ever during, because this came up in the last show too, when you're going through whether you wrote something and you're going back to it or you're going through edits or something, it's like, man, that's a good line. Who wrote that? Oh, I wrote that. Do you ever have those moments?
Once in a while.
Yeah.
My writing is often a lot rougher than some other authors may be. I've probably given several of Chris's editors mental fits. In fact, I know I have. I've improved over the years, but I'm still challenging because, like we talked about, I write on the fly. And when I get into some scenes, it just comes out. Mm-hmm. And I've discovered over time that going over it more than just looking for stupid errors, I try to avoid it because I try to rewrite endlessly. And that was a habit you get into as a young author sometimes. They'll never finish a book because they just keep changing it. And we always tell them the first thing to do is you can never have a book if you never finish it. So, I tend to push through to the end and then go through on a quick rewrite. And anything pops out at me, I fix it and then I let it go. I've had a few come back to me from Chris's. The editors have come back to the section and said, we can't make any sense out of this. And I read it and go, yeah, you're right. That makes no sense.
John, you ever have that experience? Like, damn, I'm good when you're reading something of yours?
I mean, yeah, although actually the first time I listened to my first book in audio, it was more of like a, ooh. Oh. And because it was my first book, and I've learned a lot since then. And every now and then I mention to Chris like, hey, maybe I could go back and clean up Orlando Druid. But, it had just come out in audio then, so it's a good time. It just came out in German now, and do I go and work on that or do I write new stuff? But now, because of that, one of the things I do when I finish a manuscript is I have the computer read the entire thing to me.
I've started doing that the last year too. I actually use the read through. It helps a lot.
Because I've noticed that, when you listen to it, if I read, and I'm a touch dyslexic, but if I read, my brain will fill in gaps. Mm-hmm. So if I've dropped a word or something, my brain will fill that in for me. But if you listen, then that sticks out, that's jarring. And you can, okay, wait, pause, all right, fix that.
Yeah, my number one curse is the double word, where you use the same adverb in two different sentences immediately. And I never catch it when I read it, but if I have it read it to me, I get it every time.
Yeah, those kind of things where you use the same word too often sticks out. Like how many times they use the word resist in Orlando Druid? So actually I have a list, and it's I imagine most authors do, but I have a list of words that I go and I hunt down in my manuscripts now. I call it my just look like that list. Words that, generally aren't needed or that I overuse. And so I go through, search for all those, and it's okay, is that the right word for that occasion?
There he is. Since
the rewrite Oz, I know how you feel, because when Chris bought the Earthsong series from my previous publisher, I went back and reread the first book, and it was so terrible, I literally rewrote the entire book because I had written it a decade ago, and my powers are so much stronger now. It was just terrible. So I just completely redid it. A little more condensed, it's more concise. And I got to add a few things that I added in the later series to make more sense now. But it's just a better read too, I think.
So since we're on the topic, let's talk about your methods? How you know how do you write? Like like when you wake up in the morning or in the afternoon, whenever you wake up, and from when you go to bed, do you have a routine, things like that?
Well, I have a consistent day job, so I have a block of time that's already carved out. So generally during the week, my writing time's in the evenings, and I try to like set aside 2-3 hours to do that. So a tool that's really helped me actually recently is sprinting.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was doing sprints today, and I knocked out 1,500 words today before between lunch and before this.
Okay.
Just because it forces you to focus for a stretch of time.
Like, so what's an average sprint for you?
I sprint 20 minutes.
Oh wow, okay, that is fast.
And if I'm doing like multiple sprints, it's like I'll sprint for 20, break for 10, and then during that break, I'll like write on an index card, okay, just broad strokes of what I want to do in the next sprint, and or if I'm going to need like a name, I'll come up with that, or if I need to if I came across something that I was kind of spinning wheels on during the sprint, I'll make a marker, move on, and then go back and fix it during that break.
Mark?
I've never found the ideal way. Realistically, when I'm doing it full time, my best time for writing is like from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning. I've really tried to be the morning person. You get up, sit and write. It doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work. I use most of the day, I think, to kind of subconsciously organize what I want to do. Like when I go to bed, I usually don't go to sleep for an hour or so till after I go to bed. And that whole time I'm running plot lines in my head and thinking about what's going to do next. I'll run dialogue, I'll run ideas, and then I sleep work on it. A lot of times I will dream plots, I'll dream ideas. And every once in a while, if I get in the middle of the night, I'll grab my phone and email myself a note. Happens a lot, actually. But learning as a professional author, I've had to learn that make myself write. We call it the slog. You've got to get through this section of the book to get the next one. So I've started to treat it as a carrot and stick. If I can get through this crappy slog of character development or whatever I have to do in the city, then I can get to the fight later. A lot of authors will skip around. I write linearly. I don't write the end. Chris can do that. He wrote the end of a book we were working on together, drove me insane. I'm like, how can you do that? We're not there yet. It might not work that way.
I know the ending, but I don't write it till I get there.
Yeah, me too. I'll have an idea what I want to get to. But sometimes for me, the fun is getting there. It's literally the enjoyment of putting those pieces together, and you get near the end, and you can ask my wife, I'll come out of the office and go, got it. I find out what I needed that last piece to bring that all together. And that is really enjoyable. That's that GM part of you when you've got your players to do what you want them to do. And I often refer to my characters as the players. It's an old habit that just never quite died. And yeah, they will sometimes do things you don't want them to do.
Your character. And people say, well, since you're writing a book, it must be different from players because your characters do exactly what you want. It's like, wait, why are you guys going back in the bar? We're done with the bar scene. Why are you going back? We don't even. I guess we're gonna have another bar scene. Okay.
And it's especially with long-term players' laws, right? The character you've been writing for a while, they get more and more of their own mind.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think I'm a little bit schizophrenic sometimes. It's just the way it works out.
The romantic triangle I had in the Milesian Accords didn't turn out the way I originally planned it. It just organically changed as the characters grew.
Yep.
And it's like, by the time I got into like the second book, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That isn't how it's going to work out.
But sometimes the end is usually better than it would have been, though, if you try to stick to what you want to do originally.
So you're saying don't be so precious about your original ideas.
No, well, I mean, it depends what kind of writer you are. Like I mentioned, David Weber, his books speak for themselves. That method works for him. Each person is different. Some people are hybrids. They have a good outline and they improvise a bit in the end, but they still stick to the outline. It's what works for you. Oz has more of an outline than I do.
I kind of do like what I call a Lego outline now, where I'll have like, my main point of view characters. And okay, what plots do I need to have happen for them? I have this like drawn out in a grid on a piece of paper, and I go down and make blocks for each character, stack of blocks. Then I arrange the blocks in chronological order. And then about a quarter to a third of the way through writing, the Kool-Aid Man appears.
Oh,
and
yeah.
goes through my wall of blocks.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm losing blocks. I'm finding new blocks I didn't have before. Okay, well, I'm just going to put it back together as I go.
What's funny is Oz and I, despite the fact of being lifelong friends and been in the journey together, we have yet to write a book together. But now we're plotted to do one.
Yep.
As actually part of the rules of engagement. One of the benefits to one of the backers for the Kickstarter was a book that they helped create and outline and stuff. So that'll be probably next year is our guess. We're going to fit it into the next series somewhere.
I think it'll work in the Phoenix Initiative, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Caveat Emptor would be perfect for the Phoenix Initiative.
Okay. But we finally got the outline of what we're going to do, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And the advantage he has is it's actually going to be based around Bjorn. So it's going to be another Bjorn book, basically. But
no, Bjorn has nothing to do with it.
I thought you were using Bjorn.
No, Bjorn's a bypass down. He's got enough shit to do. No,
okay,
no.
never mind.
Remember, we have enough units for Caveat Emptor. We don't need the Berserkers in there.
Okay.
I
thought he was going to be the carrot and the stick, but okay.
Yeah,
never mind.
Cameos.
Edit this out.
Oh, no, we're keeping it all. This is why we had both of y'all on at the same time.
As Chris came in the chat and mentioned that time when he wrote the end of the book, he did it in chapter 3. Yeah, so it was way back at the beginning. And when we write, it's like he'll write, because he's a naval aviator, former aviator, so he gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and drinks coffee and salutes the flag, and then sits down and writes 5,000 words. But the idea is that I don't start until like late in the afternoon and the early evening. So he would save it on a shared folder, and we would put our initials at the end when we were done. So I would see he was done if there's a file from that day with initials. So I'd open it up. So I get up that day and open it up. I go, what the hell is this prologue or epilogue going on here? I'm like, did you really just write the ending of this story? But, as it comes up to him, he will write it in pieces, and then I work around it. And we wrote probably 12 books together. It's kind of become an established habit. That's why I said with Oz, it's going to be fun because we've never done this together.
No.
So it's liable to be really exciting or really bad.
It's going to be awesome.
Maybe tier.
I agree.
Technical stuff. Do y'all use any particular software or anything like that to keep you organized or
MS Word and Excel.
I've started using OneNote actually.
Okay.
All of the Four Horsemen stuff is kept in multiple spreadsheets in Excel. There's a Universe Bible, and then there's what I call the Universe file that has like every ship class that's been created. Authors are supposed to send me details on aliens, but they don't always do that. So a lot of them are in there, at least with basic descriptions and where they first appeared and their home planets and stuff like that. Because, realize we've had, I don't know, Chris can say, but I bet we've had probably 40 authors right in this universe in one way or another. At least a dozen or so have written books or multiple books. So keeping all that straight, that can be a task.
Wow. All right. So that's a peek behind the curtain there for how you guys write. So we're going to move away from writing a little bit. What are things that y'all are into outside of writing, whether it's movies or TV activities, vacation locations, things like that?
I mean, we're big nerds, so Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings. I mean, that's all kind of gaming adjacent stuff. Comic books. I have like 2 closets full of comic books. In fact, I went to get my weekly pickup today before this. So
go get your fix.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge space nerd, SpaceX fan, follow all that kind of stuff. Been to multiple launches and everything. I follow that community. I'm a shooter. I used to be instructor. Now I just, because I live in an RV, it's not very compatible to carry around an arsenal with you. So
yeah, preach. I can't shoot either.
Yeah, right. But I still get out when I can, and I've got a nice little collection of little bang bangs that I keep with me. And like Oz said, Star Wars and Star Trek. It's really hard these days because a lot of the stuff is not as good as it used to be. So pick and choose. When watching the Kenobi as it's coming out, I'm like, hey, cool. Hey, cool. It's like hit and miss with this new series.
Disney in general, with both Marvel and Star Wars, is they're really good at starting stuff, and they
not
don't
so good on the long run. Yeah.
Going or how to end it.
Yeah.
I mean, I met Timothy Zahn as a guest at In Conjunction years ago, back when I had like 2 books out, and talked with them and stuff. And when I found out they were doing some of the new series, I thought, oh my God, just take Heir to the Empire series and there's your whole next trilogy. And instead Disney goes, we don't need any of that stuff.
So let's see. Another thing in my notes here, Oz, you wanted to talk about beer?
I'd love to talk about beer. I mean, I'm
Oz?
now
Beer?
New Belgium 1554
Hold it up, Oz.
black ale. As a how I say, I like a beer I can chew.
I thought you liked
It's a meal.
IPAs.
I don't like beers that smell like dirty hippie socks. Okay, beers do not smell like eating patchouli.
We back when we were gamers, one of our things we did every night on our Tuesday game night, we go to a place right by the game store. And we'd have a couple beers and a marinated ribeye. That was our big thing every time we had it. That was before he discovered all these the brew pub and all these other things. We just had a typical beer. He's way branched out from me. I almost never drink anymore, whereas he's like a connoisseur of fine, interesting beers. I'm more of a rum guy myself now.
Oh, preach on! If it's brown, I'm down. I'm not a big beer drinker, but yeah,
you brown, I'm down.
Good man, good man. I also like a dram of whiskey, also.
Yes, sir.
Have some good ones over there in Scotland.
Oh yeah.
I bet.
We went to a distillery when I was up in the Isle of Skye on that tour.
At that 2 days when you stopped posting.
Like everywhere I went, like, okay, what's a local beer? I want to try a local beer.
So another thing you said you wanted to talk about is pop fandom and what's going on in the world there. Expound on that and how you feel on that.
Actually, I think we kind of touched on it with the whole what's going on with Marvel and DC and Star Wars and Star Trek and stuff.
The whole entertainment industry, it's been weird since the COVID and everything. I mean, Stranger Things, this season's better than the last one was. That was great to see. But entertainment,
Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, shockingly good. After Discovery being such a dud.
Star Trek.
Right. Even with the constant inability to stop retconning themselves, at least it's entertaining.
Did you see Spock Amok, the latest episode?
I've only seen the first one.
Okay, because they have some like really cool callbacks in there that
Interesting.
Fans of the original series will get.
Yeah,
is it or isn't part of the the alternate universe world they're calling it? What is it? The
Kelvin timeline?
Yes.
It is not part of the Kelvin timeline. Now,
not Kelvin timeline.
Arguably, I would call it its own timeline because of the way they jacked up the Klingons in Discovery.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I stopped watching Discovery like after a few episodes. It didn't land with me.
Well, we're mostly excited about the good Star Trek coming out soon, also known as the Orville.
Yes. Orville Trek is best Trek.
Right? I mean, who would have figured a comedian would come out with better Trek than they were making at the time? I actually think that the Orville success is part of the reason they did Strange New Worlds, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, when he went to them and said, hey, I'll do the next Trek series, and they laughed him out of the office, he's like, okay, I'll just do it myself.
And he did. He did it well.
Mm-hmm.
He did, really.
So even my father-in-law, who hates everything, likes the new Star Trek. So I'm excited to watch it myself. So we were talking about your recent trip to Edinburgh and Madrid.
Yeah,
talk about the
trips. A week in Scotland and the weekend in Madrid for a 20 books to 50K conference.
Okay. So I loved all of the pictures that you were putting on Facebook and Instagram. That was great. But I have a question about this one.
Oh.
And was wondering if you could, shed some light. Mark, go ahead and
Inquiring minds want to know.
make your comments. Go ahead.
Okay, don't even go planning my wedding yet. That's a friend I made while I was on my Highland and Isle of Skye tour in Scotland.
Friend.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to make an old dog's tail wag. Okay.
Anyway,
You're a very lovely young lady. You seem to be having fun.
you could be
It was
doing
a good
worse.
trip.
Wait, say that again.
It was a really good trip.
I bet it was. All right. No, I had to make fun of you for that one. That was when I
Right.
saw that, I was like, "Damn, John."
Well, because everybody kept asking in the Facebook, it's like, who's that? Who's that? And he just refused to answer any of it.
That's funny.
Sometimes mystery is best.
Hey, it made me curious. That's why I brought it up. So
Right?
you were successful. So how'd your conference in Madrid go?
It went really well. Originally, Chris was supposed to go also, and he was going to have 2 panels, and I was going to be on the panels. And when he found out he couldn't go, he asked if I'd moderate the panels for him.
Mm-hmm.
And because originally it's like, hey, you want to be panels? I'm like, oh, sure, I like being on panels because I can sit there and you could ask a question, you answer the question, not too hard, even for an introvert like me. Then he's like, well, hey, I can't go. Would you be able to moderate those panels for me?
Surprise!
He's like, I'll give you questions off of that. I'm like, sure, yeah, no problem, because you have a list of questions. You ask the other people on the panel questions. If you don't want to talk, you don't have to. You just punt down to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, these are presentations. You're the only one up there.
Oh.
The Oz and I are charter members of the Professional Introvert Club.
Oh yeah.
So you put us in situations like that, you don't know what you're necessarily going to get out the other side. We're experts at holding a drink and talking to a potted plant.
But Chris and I put together the presentations, and it's funny because one was on in-person events, which this was an in-person event,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one was a collaboration, which our presentations were collaboration. So I used both those topics to kind of anchor the presentations, and I managed to successfully role play someone who knew what the heck he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing that for years.
Yeah. Well, I'm a card-carrying member of the Introvert Club myself. I have no idea why I'm doing a YouTube show. So,
I think you're doing it pretty well myself.
To you, Mark. So you and I are both full-time RVers.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you and Joy helped me pull the trigger. You, Joy, and COVID helped me pull the trigger on becoming full-time RVers. And
you've been avoiding us ever since.
No, I saw you at FactoryCon.
Well, FactoryCon, yeah.
And I'll see you there again. How long have you been on the road now?
Our 3-year anniversary just passed in March.
Okay. We're coming up on 2 years in August.
Yep.
So where have you been? Where are you now? Where are you going? All that good stuff.
Right now we're in Florida with Joy's family. They came down here for a week to see her mom and everything. It's a thing they did every year, but we've never had a chance to really go along, so we thought we'd do it this year. But the RV's parked in Indiana right now because I've been doing side job delivering RVs. Mm-hmm. But in our travels, the only states we haven't been to, excluding Hawaii, of course, is Alaska, California, and Vermont and Rhode Island. We've been in every other state we've camped in. At least that's our rule. We have to at least camp. Driving through doesn't count. We have to at least, throw the jacks down and stay for a day.
Yeah, that's the rule.
Vermont's weird. Rhode Island's small. California's full of hippies. So, that's kind of the reason we haven't been to those. And Alaska is an entire adventure by itself. We really need 4 months to do it properly. Mm-hmm. And even if you go in the summer, the Alcan, because of the frost heaves and everything, it can just tear the hell out of your RV. I don't know if I want to do it with ours. We have a 43-foot RV that's our home. So I have an office. Joy has work area. It weighs about 17,000 pounds. So towing that for 8,000 miles to reach Anchorage, I'm not sure if I'd want to do that. Might be something we do after we settle down. We buy a little RV just for cons and stuff. I want to.
a breakdown in the middle of nowhere, Canada.
Oh,
Yeah, I have a 50-gallon reserve tank, and there's still places that you can barely make between fuel stops. You pass a sign that says next fuel 250 miles.
that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a few places that we're gonna save until we have a smaller rig because we have a 40-foot rig.
We started with
So,
an R-Pod, which is like 18 foot long. I would take that to Alaska in a heartbeat.
mhm.
But a bigger rig like you have, I mean, you have like a 40-foot Montana or something like that.
40-foot Forest River Cardinal.
Okay, yeah. So there again, you're in the same place, towing that to Canada, Alaska.
Not only that, but some places won't let you in as big as we are. So.
Oh yeah, you get past about 23 feet, and you can't go into almost half the state parks. You know, it's just.
Mhm.
But when you're living it, you have to decide what you want to do. And if it's our permanent residence, we needed the room, so we didn't want anything this big. We just ended up with it, but we're pretty happy we did. You know, the other advantage is when you get a place got really bad storms. You know, 50-mile-per-hour straight line winds can flip some smaller travel trailers. You'd have to have winds that damage houses to flip us over. We're that big.
Yeah, well, we are currently work camping in an undisclosed location in Connecticut, and we'll be here until FactoryCon. So,
okay,
we got family up here. That's why.
Gotcha.
And then we're gonna head down south. Depending on gas prices, we'll see how far we get down south, and that'll be our winter. But yeah, I'm with you. I think once we downsize, I'm going to be a little bit more adventurous. All right. So I think y'all already answered this. When did y'all start writing? Like, were you kids and writing, or adults? Or
I wrote a picture book when I was like 5.
Oh, wow.
That's when I literally started telling people I was a writer. Wrote a lot of small short stories. I submitted some stuff what was that big? IASFM, and a couple other places. What the heck's the name of that one? Starlog, place like that. A couple other. Nothing was ever taken because it was too early in my career.
Mm-hmm.
So I've written my whole life, basically. I mean, I've never stopped.
Yeah, I was in journalism in high school and college, and I pretty much started like trying to write when I started gaming back when I was like 13.
Yeah.
Then
I was the only person in my creative writing class that turned into a science fiction story. My creative writing teacher said, you should stop. You're never going to do anything with this. You're not that good.
I hate teachers like that.
Right.
Why wouldn't you encourage?
Because it wasn't like fiction prose. It wasn't, poetry and stuff. It was a complete waste of time. Like, really?
Yeah, put your next royalty check on a Ouija board and get a hold of her.
So what made you start? I mean, you were so young, Mark. What made you start writing?
I read Robert Heinlein's Rolling Stones because I had to do a book report, and I hated reading, and I looked through the library to school, and I found that one. And that was my first discovery of science fiction. And 2 months later, I had read everything in the school library, and I was digesting the city library also. And the city librarian was nice enough to order stuff through the connected library systems. So I started getting wider exposure to, Asimov, Niven, Cornell, and I think some of the early Bova stuff I got into. Saberhagen, when I discovered the Berserker series, it really took off because the idea of AI had never occurred to me. And it lit something. It's, every kid usually, if they're lucky enough, they find something that lights them off when they see it. And that was mine. My son was like when we built our first computer together. And that was him realizing he wanted to do that kind of stuff. For me, it was discovering science fiction. Fantasy never had a tenth of the interest to me that science fiction did. When I started gaming, all that was out was D&D. So I adapted D&D for a science fiction game because there was no science fiction system that was out yet. And a few years later, Traveler came out, and off to the races.
John?
Well, I was a voracious reader when I was young. I would, read anything and get my paws on. My teachers didn't know what to do with me. And I would read. I started reading books around the house, and my mom had been a science fiction fan. So like, some of my earliest science fiction books were Asimov and Niven.
Yep.
In fact, one of the first books I remember by title is Ringworld. And one of the first books I bought with my own money was Robert Heinlein. I want to say it was The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Dave's probably about right. Every pair of pants I had a stuffed outline in the back pocket in the shape of a pocketbook. I have a book in my back pocket. It drove everybody crazy. The librarians, I'd come in and turn a book in and pull out my back pocket, and I'd get the librarian hiss for mistreating of a book. But for me, it was an information source. I never worshipped it. It drives my wife crazy too. I dog eat your books, and she's like, "What are you doing?" My wife used to be a librarian, so
yeah. So what do you get out of writing? What's your favorite thing about writing?
It's a creative outlet. Kind of like what Mark said. Like, the same is true for me for gaming. In fact, when I was married, at one point my wife thought I was dedicated too much time to gaming and asked me to stop gaming, and that lasted a few weeks.
That long?
Oh yeah, it was like, I want to say it was like something like 3 to 5 weeks, and then she came to me and she goes, "All right, honey, you need to start gaming again, because when you don't game, you're an asshole."
Been for writing for me,
because it's how I let off stress, and writing's the same way.
Me, I mean, obviously I do it for money because it's an income source, but you put that aside, there's nothing for me that's more exciting and satisfying than like the last LibertyCon we went to was the biggest panel we had for the Four Horsemen Universe, where there were probably 100 people in the audience. We had a ballroom with a lot of people in it. That was really incredible. All of our authors all lined up, and to see those fans out there all excited about the Horseman Universe and the stuff that I helped create.
I mean, you see them like cosplaying stuff. The Merc Guild fan club.
The Merc Guild, but if I couldn't get paid for it, I still do it because I love seeing people enjoying something that I know.
Don't say that Chris is watching The View. Don't say you wouldn't do it for free. Yeah.
I'm not saying I do it for free. I'm saying, but if I couldn't get paid for it anymore, I would still do it just because I love it. I love seeing these people get so much enjoyment out of this. I don't know. It's that introverted little kid in the corner who never went to parties and never had fun. Really seeing all these people, and I just sit over there quietly and smile. I don't feel the need to jump up in front and go, "I did that." I will admit that I did it, and I enjoy when people, like that. But that creation that I was part of, that's an amazing thing, And with this many books, to know that they're out there and will, probably be out there forever. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. Now, if I can just get somebody really famous to read them and talk about them.
Yeah, that is awesome. So
hashtag The Rock, read my books.
So what is your oh wait, here's Chris. I hear nothing.
No, he does everything.
Actually, I want to take a minute though to mention, Chris has been a great partner and mentor for both of us. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't be
the most professional, most honest guy I've ever dealt with in the industry. He early on years ago, he underpaid me on a royalty by like $6, and he called up to apologize and tell me I messed up. I didn't pay you all the money I shorted you. And I'm like, Chris, really? It's $6. Not only would I ever know, but it's not that. He says, what's important to me. That's the kind of guy Chris is on that side. And the other side is he's a professional, probably more professional than I'll ever be. He's a rock star in my opinion. Well,
and me as a non-author, I feel it. Like when we go to my first convention where I really got to know, the group of y'all was LibertyCon, which I'm going to again this year. That's when I realized it wasn't just a publisher and authors, and it was a business. It was friends, it was family, it was the family you chose, and I keep on saying that every episode. Yeah. And you really feel that, which is why I was kind of excited to do this. Is like I'm not a writer. I will never be a writer, but I can do this. And so this is kind of my creative outlet, and for people who seem to be a part of the family, you know. And so and I can see that's how he picks his authors too. So
yeah, another great thing is that Chris is dedicated to giving new authors an opportunity.
mm-hmm.
And with the anthology stuff, he always has, you know, a couple of slots set aside for new talent to you know, submit to and try to get in. I mean, you know, anthology is how I got my start. You know, anthology is how a lot of CKP authors got their start.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's dedicated to you know, giving other people an opportunity that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise says something about it.
Yeah. Even my wife Marisa, she was drug in Kicking and Screaming by Casey Ezel to write in an anthology, and then Chris gave her the opportunity to do so. So it was a team effort.
Let me guess, that started with hey.
Oh, you know what? I can't do this, but can you? Or you want to go? You know, stuff like that. But so let's see. What are your favorite things to write or write about, or a scene or things like that?
That is a really tough one because a lot of it is context related, and I'm like bipolar in that I write both fantasy and science fiction.
I knew you were bi all along.
What I do love doing is, like, as I'm doing my writing, I randomly toss around Chekhov's guns and then find them later.
For me, I really like writing space combat. That's part of why I wrote Winged Hussars, because I wanted there to be a Space Navy unit to be one of the, besides wanting to have a Space Navy unit as one of the horsemen, I thought it was integral. I wanted to get a chance to get my space combat on, throw some asteroids around, some missiles, all that kind of good stuff. Because I've seen it done right and I've seen it done wrong, and I wanted to try to do it as right as I could. We try to write the Horseman universe as at least somewhat hard sci-fi, as much as we can get away with. It's got some unusual rules that some people are only really realizing why things are the way they are. I mean, it's complicated. It's a deep universe.
Anti-gravity and inertial dampeners and stuff means that, you know, you have to deal with things like, you know, G maneuvers realistically.
Yeah, you've got a ship coming in to do a missile sweep on somebody, and they throw around to break their assault, and they're breaking at 9 Gs, and the crews are just trying to stay alive long enough to launch their missiles and stuff. You just never really see that kind of stuff. And I thought anti-gravity had become a trope, which is the reason I wrote it out of this universe. Because it's just, and you know, it's that way because it's easier to shoot a movie that way, obviously. But that carried over into writing. Everybody would write their science fiction stuff where it's, you know, there's 0G. I'm like, oh, okay, we're not going to do that. Or anti-gravity, you know. It was
Star Trek was really the one that popularized that.
It did it, absolutely. Because if you think back in the 50s, they did a lot of wire work with 0G and stuff, and a lot of the early science fiction stuff.
Or they just in the ship long enough. It was like a rocket ship, you know, zoom, go to the alien planet. All right, now we're there.
Exactly.
But, you know, Star Trek, I think it was the first time we spent a lot of time inside a spaceship.
Even Forbidden Planet was mostly on the planet. Very little time spent on the spaceship. And that goes back to, 1959.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting to the end of the show. What is coming up next for you guys that you're excited about? What's or if there's something that you know is coming out from someone else that you're excited about and you'd like to promote, whatever it is.
Wow, I'm just stoked to like, I want to get rules of engagement done and out to the people. And I mean, there's still a ways to go on that. There's still a lot of work to do, and there's, you know, production passes, art, things like that. You know.
Yeah, we're a little bottlenecked on some of the art right now, but also, you know, the game is Oz. A lot of the universe details and things like that is mine. So like I'm doing a lot of sidebars and stuff, and some of the discussions on what is a starport? You know, we have a section on what are starports and star towns all about, that sort of stuff. And, you know, it's taking longer than we thought because the finances involved and the complication was, you know, a little more than we thought. Which is why we tried not to outright promise any dates. You know, it's the kind of thing where we're working as hard as we can on it. And that's my big thing too. I want to see this done and out, partly because I want to think if it does well enough. We've already talked about, do we want to do a space combat thing? Do we want to do miniatures? Do we want to do other supplements? there's a lot to be done if it works. The question is, how do the fans respond? And once it's done and it's out there on Drive-Thru RPG, do other people then start buying it?
Right.
That's the big question with that. We've kind of outlined the next Big Horseman series, and right now there's been kind of a pause while people work on other projects and stuff. So we don't know how that's going to shape out. We'll probably talk about that some at LibertyCon because most of the authors will be there. And day to day, is just surviving. That's sometimes part of the challenge.
Yeah, there's a ton of projects in the work. I mean, I'm already working on Bifrost Down, and I'd like to have that done sooner or later. That's like, if I'm not working on the RPG, I'm working on that. I'm starting to put together the next Milesian Accords book, Hunting the Heart, which will pick up with Erin, the champion, and her story. And then, of course, Mark and I have to write Caveat Emptor, which is in the Four Horsemen universe.
Right. And I've got my urban fantasy, the Traveling Gods series. I've released 3 short stories in various anthologies for that. And the first book is about 3/4 done. First time I'm writing with my wife. That's proving challenging in a whole nother way. But that's her thing. She loves urban fantasy. So that's kind of her. She can help set the tenor for what she likes in urban fantasy. So that's why it's taking a little longer than that one. And I got another science fiction idea for an entire world that I've been dabbling around with and making notes. Driving's a challenge because dictation doesn't work well for me. Some authors are just, David Weber switched over to using Dragon dictation, and you almost can't tell. One of these ones I have to see the words on the page and be able to manipulate them. So it doesn't work too well when you're doing 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, you got to concentrate.
I need 10 plants.
So talked about LibertyCon. You're gonna be at LibertyCon. I will see you there.
You bet.
Now, are y'all gonna have a table there?
I'm tabling a couple of times during LibertyCon. I'll be putting my schedule up on my Facebook page.
Okay.
Yeah, my schedule will be up too. And as usual, I have a table with my wife. She has her spinner studio. She's got like tables there. So that's one of our LibertyCon's one of the ones. If you get a table, you never let it go because you'll never get it back. They have a limited dealer room. After that, I'll be at In Conjunction in Indianapolis over 4th of July weekend.
That's our hometown convention.
Right.
Oh.
Then we'll be at FenCon. I think she's at FenCon. I haven't been confirmed as a guest yet or not. That's in Dallas in September, and then after that, it's FactoryCon in October.
I'm excited about FactoryCon.
Yep.
You
going fishing?
broke up, huh?
Going fishing?
No.
Oh, come on.
That long on a boat.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah. No, I'll
cabin and drink a beer while you guys are out there.
We drink beer while we're out there too. That's the whole point. You don't have to fish. You can just drink.
Yeah, but I'll have indoor plumbing.
Yeah, just being stuck on a boat that long. I'm with you, Oz. I'm gonna sit down and drink a beer.
I got you.
Go ooh and ah when y'all come back with all the fish.
and Yvonne cooks up all that fish, right?
Yeah. So you kind of broke up a little bit when you said Joy's business name.
It's Spinners in Studio.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure she got a plug.
Yeah, I think she's even got a website by that name also. I'll have to verify that.
Yeah, we might have to do
there's an idea for a show for you, Jeremy.
Was the wives?
You get some significant others of authors on.
Mm-hmm.
That would be pretty cool.
And with me being a significant other myself.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll do that. That sounds like a good idea.
That's a good idea.
I have an idea, man. What can I say?
All right. So we're coming to the end of the show. I'm gonna do a few plugs. I want to promote the affiliated YouTube channels to CKP. That includes the Dudes in Hyperspace. Listen to their last show. Go ahead if you haven't checked it out. I think you can catch it just about anywhere you get podcasts. I watch it on either YouTube or Spotify. I think you can get it on Apple. The last show was great, although I'm biased because my wife was on it.
Yeah, I listened to that one actually today while I was working.
Yeah. And Casey Azell has a Writer's Life podcast that she does. Go listen to her last live vlog. Again, Marisa was on that one too, so I'm biased. And then Marisa has her own fledgling YouTube channel that we're trying to get up and running. So go there, like and subscribe. And so we've got a busy schedule coming up for podcast. We have a special live book launch coming on June 14th for Todd, and I'm going to try his last name, Van Stock. I hope I'm saying that right. We're going to do, it's a special one because it's not on our usual night. It's not our usual time. And Marisa is going to be the host of it. So it's going to be a special podcast slash book launch. They're going to do, I think they're going to do a chapter read and learn more about Todd. After that, on June 15th, that's on a Tuesday. This is on the next Wednesday. On June 15th, the latest of the Hit World Valkyrie series that Marisa is doing is going to be posted on the CKP website. Go see that. It's an ongoing series that will culminate into the book launch of the anthology. And on June 17th, live from LibertyCon, we're going to try and live stream a year ahead with CKP, and a very special event. Our boy on June 18th, that's Saturday, our boy Rob is getting married, and he's going to live stream his wedding, and I've had the privilege to live stream that for him on the CKP website. Okay. And then last but not least, we have our After Action report podcast. It'll be a special after LibertyCon podcast on the 22nd. We're doing a lot of videos in a short amount of time, and it's due to LibertyCon and special events. And one thing, speaking of conventions, if you haven't voted, go and vote for your favorite CKP authors. I believe the last day to submit your votes are July 19th. So make sure you go and vote for your favorite authors. They can use your support. Of course, if you're watching this show, most likely it's going to be a CKP author. So go ahead and put your votes in.
Yeah, because people voting is the only way we have a chance against the big houses, because they've figured out that the Dragon Awards exist, and we kind of got drowned out last year. So step up for the underdog, people.
Yeah, so go there, and people watching, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, even the ones you don't like, tell them to go vote, tell them to watch the show, like and subscribe. So guys, before we leave, go ahead and plug everything that you want to plug. Tell people where they can, just like we did at the beginning, tell people where they can find you. Mark, go first.
You can also, I forgot to mention first time, you can find me at my homepage, which is worldmaker.us. But of course, on Facebook, Mark Wandrey author. I'm there. That's where I am usually. And also I do a lot of posts on Instagram, but those tend to be travel pics and things like that. Yep, I'm not too hard to find.
Okay. And John?
Oh, JonROsborne.com. Maybe if I get really famous, I'll be able to afford that second R. On Facebook at Jon R. Osborne, Instagram Jon R. Osborne, and Twitter from ye olden days at Druid Oz.
All right. Well, guys, I truly appreciate you being on here. I think it's the best show we've had so far.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And I really, really appreciate your time. It was a great show, especially having both of you together. I know you've been friends for so long, and I like the little married bickering session you had. That was good, and I'm not cutting it out. It's staying in there. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Again, go like, subscribe, visit these authors' websites, buy their books. Go to chriskennedy.com. You can find it all there. Patronize their Patreon accounts. Show your support. And with that, we're going to say good night, goodbye, and see you next time.
Thanks,
Sláinte.
everybody.